All right, let's get started now. And first of all, best of all for 2025, New Year starting. We have lots of content for you, so hopefully it'll be a good year for all of us. Today, I'm really pleased to have Neil Pearson with us. He's going to talk in just 5 minutes about from log file to AI insights, 60-year evolution of observability and AI ops. Sounds like an interesting program that's going to be difficult to fit in 1 hour, but let's try it. Before I hand over to Neil, I just want to remind you that this is a Munch and Learn. We call it since we started this program more than 3 years ago now. And we have a couple of sessions planned for the next 2 months. We first of all, the Munch and Learn are again a monthly series that is more around thought leadership, kind of vendor and product agnostic as much as we can. And we have topics in February, which is going to be about an interesting use case of fraud detection in AI. Done by Jordan Nanos. This is going to be February 19th, and we already have the links. And I know Denis in the background from the team is going to put the links in the Q&A, so you guys can register or keep the links at least. We have a session in March 19th about how we used it at HPE, Chat HPE. It's a kind of a private large language model that we have implemented. So it's an interesting use case. I was able to discuss with the speaker of this session at the last Discover in Barcelona, and he agrees to explain how they have implemented and some of the tricks and tips from that implementation. So that's for Munch and Learn. We have 2 additional programs that we run on a monthly basis as much as we can. One is called the Meetup. So in the Meetups, as opposed to Munch and Learn, we try to go a little bit more deeper into a technology, an open source technology or a technology. And we have a couple of sessions already planned for that series as well. For example, at the end of this month, on January 29th, we have a deep dive on the private cloud AI, the software stack for that. So that's one that you might want to join for if you're interested in this solution that we also announced at Discover in Las Vegas. That was on February 26th. We'll be doing an introduction to HP GreenLake webhooks. So this is kind of a way you can subscribe to events from the HP GreenLake cloud and write your own webhook events. This will be delivered by the lead engineer for this feature in HP GreenLake. So that should be technical and good enough for all of us. So that's February 26th. You can already register for that. And finally, we have something around deep dive on eBPF. And it's good that Neil is here because he's also the speaker for that one. And we don't have a final title yet, but this is an open source technology for doing some sort of sandboxing on Linux kernels. And Neil will be talking about that March 26th. Finally, we started another series back in August, September of 24. We called that AI Jam series. And this is different. It's more like a panel discussion on AI. And we have 2 sessions coming up. One is next week, and it's going to be how to build an ethical and trustworthy AI system. And we have a couple of panel experts to discuss that with Audrey, our host for the session. And then on February 12th, we'll have a session entitled AI Inferencing at the Edge, from Earth to Space, which sounds like an interesting session also. I don't really have yet the registration for that one because I don't have the abstract and the speakers, but I'm working on it. So this is what we have for the beginning of 25. I think it's pretty complete already. So feel free to register for those who are available, which is basically anything in January and most of the things in February. And there are other ways to learn from the HP Dev community. We have one program that we call Workshops on Demand, which you should be aware of. This is a catalog of workshops. These workshops are delivered through Jupyter Notebooks, and this is available over the internet, free of charge, 24/7 to anyone. We have more than 30 workshops in the catalog right now, from learning a programming language such as Python Rust. We recently introduced a 201 workshop on Python, for example, up to open source projects such as Docker 101, Kubernetes 101. So getting started with this technology, or even HPE products, of course, such as GreenLake API or Systemity Insight Center. So these workshops are available. I would suggest you give it a try. And if you do, please provide feedback. You know, if you like the experience, if you think there are missing subjects that we should add to the catalog, just speak up and tell us through this end of session survey. Finally, I'd like to add that this is a community that we are building here, and we need your help to amplify and contribute. So you can invite anybody to these talks. They are open to all audiences, customer, partners, university students, friends, colleagues. So don't hesitate to invite other people to join our talks. We have a newsletter to keep up with what's available each month. We send that newsletter at the beginning of the month. So the newsletter for January is out already. You can find there all the upcoming events, of course, but all the blog that we released in the past months and other interesting things that you should be aware. By the way, all of these newsletter blogs are also published in BHPE. So if you're with HPE and you want to share those articles on social media, on your own social media, we have all those articles in the platform. So look for HPE Dev, for example, and you'll find all the articles from the HPE Dev community, which then you can share on LinkedIn or on other social media. We have a dedicated Slack workspace that is dedicated to customer and partners and internal folks asking questions about integration, about development, about automation. So there are a lot of channels available to ask the question in the right place. Don't hesitate to sign up. You can always help answering questions, or you can ask your own questions. And finally, we have an X Twitter account that you can follow. If you still want to continue to use this platform, feel free. If you're an SME and you'd like to contribute, we have a very easy way to write blogs and contribute your own blogs. So feel free to take a look on this developer.hp.com/contribute. We explain how to write a blog, your own blog, and we provide technical review, we provide editorial review, and I would say within a week you should have your blog up on the website, available for your customer, for your partners, or for yourself. So if you want to write a blog, you can reach out if you have questions. If you want to deliver one of these meetup, you reach out to us as well. And if you want to work to add a workshop on demand in the catalog, feel free to also reach out to us. We are looking for helpers here, so we'll be happy to talk to you. And these are all the links for reaching out to the dev community. So this is the website, the internal Slack, the external Slack first, the internal Slack. We recently also started the partner Slack, which replaces the old Yammer. And we have the monthly newsletter, we have an email, of course, and this is the HP Developer X account, and this is direct link to our workshop on demand. You can scan that QR code to get all the links in one web page. And with that, I would like to hand it over to Neil. Now the whole audience has arrived, so it's all yours. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much, Didier, for that amazing introduction. It's truly an honor and privilege to be able to speak to you all today. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Neil Pearson. I've been with the OpsRamp company now for nearly 5 years, but I've worked in what we now call Observability AI Ops space for the last 35 years, all my working career actually, and it still fascinates me, this subject. But it goes back way further than that. You know, this is why when I researched this, we're going back nearly 60 years, when the term observability first came out. So what I'd like to do is, whether you're a newbie, a rookie in this area, or a SME, I'm going to explain to you where we are now. I will cover OpsRamp, of course, because that's where I'm focused, but obviously there's a much broader set of solutions out there in the market. I'll explain where we are today with observability AIOps, but how did we get to where we are today? What have been all the innovations and the developments over the years? So I've done some research into this. So I'll go back to the 1960s all the way to the present day, give you a glimpse of what we think the future holds. Now, Didier mentioned at the beginning, we will be doing a talk on a technology called eBPF, which we believe is going to be incredibly important going forward, incredibly important technology in the observability space. So more on that in March. So without further ado, let me just come on to the slide. So I'm actually not using PowerPoint today. I've decided to do the presentation within an observability platform itself, and that is OpsRamp. Okay, so here we are. So I want to just talk about, as I was putting this together recently, way back in 1993, it's when I really started to get interested in automation. So obviously that's, 3 decades ago. But everything that I've done up from then until now has been consistent. As everything, all of the solutions and the companies that we speak to um, in our day-to-day jobs, it all tends to focus on automation. I don't know about you, but I follow a lot on social media and YouTube. Everywhere I go now, they're talking about AI agents. Okay, so any task that needs to be performed, there's a chat GPT or Claude or all these type of new solutions that's going to enable you to get smarter, do carry out tasks quicker than ever before. And this is only going to be, continuing. But I first started to think about this back in 1993. I'll tell you a little story very briefly. So I joined a private hospital in London. I was a junior, uh, you know, computer operator, and I went for the interview, and I thought it went really well, but I didn't get the job. And I asked the hiring manager, "Hey, I thought things went really well. Um, could you give me any feedback?" And he told me that he didn't like my shoes. This is a true story. I didn't get this job because the hiring manager didn't like my shoes. However, the guy who did get the job never showed up for work. And then I was, there ready, to take that role. And so I joined, and it really was the springboard for what I've become and what I do today. So what I did was I was working on a platform called DECVAX using the VMS operating system. For those of you that are millennials, you probably won't really know what that is, but this is one of the distributed systems that came out in the 1980s, but it is still used today, in fact, in banking industry to a small degree. But what it allowed me to do was to think, okay, I'm running operations or trying to, do batch processing and all these things. But what I figured out was that every single task that I was asked to perform could be automated using a scripting language. So that's what I did. I built an automated operation system to effectively, I just clicked a button and it carried out all my duties for the day. And after a year, I'd effectively made myself redundant. So I moved on to a new role where I did exactly the same thing. So the dream has always been around automating operations. We call that today in OpsRamp autonomous IT operations. So it's not a new concept. Obviously, the technology and what we do these days is very different than 30 years ago. But the fundamentals are the same. We're now got it's all about AI agents, doing everything for us. So this is really where it gets exciting within operations is how can we, evolve to allow, AI and machine learning to make recommendations on what actions to take. What I want to see is it's a bit it's not as far-fetched as it sounds, is I want to be notified. I want the computer, the system to talk to me. So today we have like ChatGPT and all these type of solutions. You have to ask a question. It then goes, fetches information and returns, the results. We're going to get into a stage, bit like in Star Trek, very science fiction. The system will talk to me when there's an issue and recommend what actions to take, and then I'll be able to respond, and so on. That's the dream, and we're almost there. I kid you not. So just to give you a sense of, we believe what I'll come to the future, right, where the trends are, as I further in the presentation. But what is currently defined as the future of observability and AIOps, it's already here with a solution like OpsRamp. The first one is around unified observability, otherwise known as the single pane of glass. So OpsRamp, if you're not familiar with us, we've been in business now for 2014. Obviously, we were acquired by HPE 2 years ago, or nearly 2 years ago. And what you're seeing on the screen here is a single view into your hybrid infrastructure. So everything from end user experience using what we call synthetic monitoring, all the way down to bare metal hardware monitoring and everything in between. This is what we are delivering today. That is unified observability. Now, secondly, some of the advances is being able to visualize an IT system. Okay, so one of the techniques that's been around a long time is the ability to do discovery and dependency mapping. This is that. So this is an entire VMware infrastructure that is automatically discovered. And this is used for several purposes. First one being to do better change management. So being able to, it says, okay, I'm going to update, some storage. What would be impacted by that change? And then you can have better, rollback planning. And the second use case is around machine learning to do alert correlation. And I'll talk about that a little bit more as we go along. So the ability to do, business service mapping. Again, this is something that is so important, being able to offer customers the ability to see exactly where in you have a business service, like software as a service, or if it's on premise. This is an ERP system, okay, SAP, for example. And then what are all the underlying IT services that make up that system? And so you can see exactly where the issues are. This is called business service mapping, and it's very much related to topology. Now, AIOps, we tend to focus on, what we call event and incident management, but that's not just what it's for. It can be, AIOps is about applying AI machine learning to any type of operation, okay, that customers perform. So, but we tend to see the best results in the event and incident management area. So to give you an example of what is, perceived to be, something that is difficult to obtain, but we've had this solution now for several years. So being able to reduce noise in the environment, okay, by up to 99.97%, as you can see here. This is what we're talking about, to become, much more efficient, doing more with less, reducing the noise and friction in the environment, reducing false positives. Machine learning allows you to do that. And automation, being able to automate any type of activity or task. This is what we're talking about, okay? This is what the market is looking for, OpsRamp, and, there are other solutions in the market, but we're also HPE. But the final thing is, again, this is where the future direction and the dream starts to become a reality. We're already on this path. So using AI to ask questions and then get the results. So this is built into the platforms. But again, it relies on obviously the system having all of the data, the telemetry data to work with, alerts, metrics, logs, traces, network flows, and then have the ability to ask questions about that data. That's where we currently are. But ultimately, we want the machines to be able to speak to us. That's my dream. Whether or not we'll get there, I don't know, but I hope we do, because for those of you that are working with customers or you are a customer, there's just too much complexity going on. There are too many activities that need to be done. It's very, very difficult to manage IT operations these days, given the complexity. Let's use these platforms effectively, because this is not going away. As I said, we're bombarded now with AI agents to do everything, browser automation. You've probably got experience of this yourself. This is the future, okay? And observability and ops is no different. But so this is where we are now, okay? We have a single platform for a single observability and AIOps platform and automation. But how did we get here? So you have to go back to the 1960s to look at this. You know, where did this all come from? It was actually introduced in 1959, okay, not 1960s. So if you're familiar with the definition of observability, it's about trying to look at trying to understand the internal state of an IT system by the outputs that it produces. And this concept, you know, was introduced way back in 1959. So this is not a new term. Obviously, you know, the practicalities of it today are very different, but the concept remains the same. We want to understand what's going on in our systems, but the only way to do that effectively is to analyze the output. We like to think of this as there's an acronym for this called MELT. So metrics, logs, traces. That's the modern day. But back then, very, very different. Obviously, technology, very, very rudimentary and fundamental. So what was actually going on at the time? It was really engineers trying to look at, mechanical systems to understand the internals. It was really you know, really focusing on aerospace and robotics. But what they did back then, if you're familiar with the history of this, is fundamental to what we know today. And without this, we probably wouldn't be having this call and this meeting. So what were some of the key advances, as I've been doing the research here, that really enable us to do what we are doing today? So it was dominated by mainframes, okay, particularly the IBM System 360. Just the cost of things back then was just astronomical. So memory was like for 8 kilobytes of memory was $133,000. I can't even think what that is in today's money. It was the first time in 69 that, two computers or nodes effectively could, communicate with each other. And that was called ARPANET between UCLA and Stanford universities. Apparently, the first message, I didn't know this, they typed in a message called login, but the system crashed after it got to LO, which I thought was quite interesting. So that effectively was the birth of the internet as we know it today. And that was way back in 69. It was also a time when, time sharing evolved, where a computer allowed multiple users to access the system simultaneously. And it was the first time we started to see monitoring tools. Okay, was way back then, something called a tool called IBM Monitor 2. And it was a very, very early monitoring tool for mainframes. There was obviously a lot going on at the time. There was a boom in the computer industry. Technology was advancing rapidly. New programming languages were coming out, COBOL being one of them. I think if there are any COBOL programmers still out there, they're probably multimillionaires by now, because there's just no one is really learning this language anymore. But many IT systems still rely on it. And, again, there was apparently the mouse was invented in 1968. It just seems such a long time ago. But without all of these, advances, we wouldn't be where we are today. Things started to evolve, not very much in the 1970s when I was researching this. Again, very, very rudimentary and early development monitoring tools, mostly for mainframes, because they were dominating the market at the time. And it was used to track basic system performance and resource usage. again, these type of computers were largely used by enterprises and obviously, government agencies in the industries that you see on the left here. And if you were a system administrator back then, you obviously very, very rudimentary tools that you had available to you. Log files were, available. But again, what I found in my experience is, log files and like that, it comes down to the developer, and the engineers who built those systems to, expose that information. Obviously, we take it for granted today. But so back in the 1970s, I was not working then, of course, but some of the key advances back then that really helped us today. Unix was born in 1971. Um, I forgot, I thought it was much later than that, but no, it wasn't. The birth of the first personal computer came out back in 75 called Altair 8800. Ethernet was born in 1973. Again, I thought that was later. Little did I know. So lots of advantages, lots of advantages, sorry. So new programming languages came out, C language. Again, a lot of still the applications today are running these languages. Big growth in the computer industry. Email came out in 1971. Again, all of the things that we take for granted, but without these, we would not be in a position where we are today. And they were the humble beginnings of what we call observability today. So that's just the 1960s, 1970s. So, I'm sorry, it's timed out. We are live. Apologies for that. So, moving on to the 1980s and 1990s. So this is really where, I kind of started out my career. So 1980s come along, introduced the adoption of the SNMP protocol. Again, we're still using that today. It's up to version 3 now. So a lot of what we do, particularly in OpsRamp and network monitoring, is still based on SNMP. That's not going away. But that's been around, since for nearly over 40 years. New monitoring tools started to be introduced. Tools like Big Brother, I do remember that from early days. Nmon were being used to monitor system performance. So starting to see a change in what was going on, and particularly with the systems that were being developed. There was the rise in what we call distributed systems. So this is what I'm more familiar with. So digital DECVAX is an example of a distributed system. We started to see, because Unix was introduced in the previous decade, we started to see the usage of scripting languages, cron as a way to automate jobs. Again, as I was researching, I learned some new things. I thought cron was later than this, but no, it's been around since the 1980s, and we still use this today to automate repetitive jobs. So some of the key advances and innovations in this period that are relevant to us, again, DNS was introduced, domain name system in 83. The internet as we knew it was really formed in 1983 with the introduction of TCP/IP. If you've ever watched Mission Impossible, you'll see Tom Cruise using Usenet and bulletin boards. But again, this was in the previous decade. So that film came out in 96. This is in the 1980s. This has been around. So again, without any of this, what we're doing today in this world, observability, nothing of that would be possible. Clearly, some big advances in computing, Cray 2, which is obviously we're familiar with here at HPE. Some new programming languages that, again, I am very familiar with. Perl, and if any of you have used that before, not so common these days or popular. It's more Python these days is very common that we use. But I spent a large chunk of my career programming in Perl. Again, I started using that in 97. So, but it's been around already 10 years. Again, all of these things are used to help automate, repetitive tasks. And these are just fundamental, as we will see. So the 1990s, really, maybe many of you started your careers in the 90s, where we started to see tools that are still used today with many companies like Nagios, IBM Tivoli, BMC Patrol, and obviously the HP OpenView, which is obviously no longer, which is still used today. Okay. But again, a lot of these, I don't like the term, they call them legacy monitoring tools, but they are still widely used today. But clearly a lot of customers and projects I work on, they're slowly starting to evolve away from those types of solutions to more modern equivalent, because the market has shifted significantly. Complexity started to rise with distributed systems. So it was more about focusing on reliability and performance of the systems that were interconnected with each other. We started to see the introduction of, logging solutions to aggregate logs, centralized syslog, and tools like that started to be widely used because, logs are really the gold mine in our world. It's probably the most useful information when troubleshooting issues. And that's really, a big, requirement these days, but it always has been, is to identify the root causes of issues. I have my own opinion on this. I think a large number of outages and downtime are caused by change management. Okay. So, if you ever see the news and there's been an outage, typically the root cause is a configuration change of some kind, which is usually the root cause, but it's not always. But, we're starting to see progress by using telemetry data, such as logs and metrics, to help identify root causes of issues. And clearly there was a massive expansion in the internet. So, from the early 90s when I first got exposed to this, started to see, obviously huge advances. So, what was going on at the time relevant to, the topic today? Obviously the web was born in 91. Okay, we started to see, the emergence of web browsers, Netscape Navigator. Do you remember that? Clearly massive boom in the internet in terms of the users. PCs, Windows 95 started to emerge. Obviously, we had Windows NT as well at the same time. We're starting to see e-commerce, okay, advance with the likes of Amazon and eBay. Starting to see advances in networking. So the Wi-Fi standards started to be introduced. Again, new programming languages coming out, Java 95, HTML, JavaScript in the middle of the decade. So again, what you're seeing is from the early days, there's just been incremental advances in the way that we manage IT systems, given the advances in the technology. So moving on to modern day observability. So starting with the 2000s and up until the end of the last decade. So around about the 2001, 2002, we started to see the emergence of a technology called APM, or Application Performance Monitoring. So some of the pioneers in that space, New Relic, Dynatrace, really started to revolutionize how we do application monitoring and observability. And obviously there's still obviously key platforms today. There's been a psychological shift from what we call reactive to proactive monitoring. So I like to think of this as the break fix model is, we're monitoring our systems. Unfortunately, something breaks and we fix it. Okay, that's a break fix model. So they're starting to see, okay, are there better ways to do this, to get in front of issues? And we like to think of that as proactive monitoring. Okay, so there were vendors out there. One of them that I remember is called Naturative, that they were really pioneers in predictive analytics. So being able to, have a data lake and being able to analyze a lot of data and being able to determine, unknown issues, and, am I seeing, trends that, okay, are they seasonal? And then can I take any type of preventive action? So you're starting to see the emergence of these type of solutions, given the complexities that exist. We're starting to see, big traction in the DevOps, movement. So rather than IT operations being a silo and the development team being a silo, we wanted to try and break down these silos. And that is still a challenge today. Although the adoption of cloud native and site reliability engineering is trying to address some of these issues, but it's about, those two groups, joining together. It may even be the same it may be the same person performing a lot of those duties, but it's combining, the best practices around, development operations, and it made a lot of sense. We're starting to see more automation happening in the industry. More and more tools are being introduced to the market, and of course, virtualization was introduced. So again, some of the key advances and innovations that were going on at the time: broadband, really became mainstream. Big rise in social media platforms. I actually thought LinkedIn came out in 2007, but no, I got it wrong. It's 2003. So I was 4 years behind the curve on LinkedIn. Some older technologies, MySpace, Google, and so on, really started to dominate the social media environment. Dot-com bubble happened between 2000 2002. Obviously, a lot of issues there. That's not really relevant to observability, but what was the growing adoption of open source technologies, particularly around Linux. Again, that's really the mainstream today. I don't really obviously still see Windows with customers, but majority of workloads now are going to be running on Linux platforms. So some of the advances in programming languages which are relevant today, particularly around JavaScript, Web 2.0. A lot of the automations that we use today are using JavaScript and those type of programming languages. But again, this is nearly 25 years ago. So this has been happening a lot. So moving on to the 2010 period. So we're starting to see the emergence of observability as a distinct discipline within, an IT organization. So the idea is that it's based around three pillars. You have metrics, logs, and transaction traces. So that's the MELT term. Okay. So that's really what we are basing everything on today. And the idea is, again, going back to the 1960s, it's about trying to, understand what is going on in our systems, the internals, by the output that it produces in the form of metrics, logs, and traces. That is observability in a nutshell. But in the middle of the 2010s, around 2016, Gartner introduced the term AIOps, or AI for IT operations. Again, that is still very relevant today. In OpsRamp here, we refer to this as autonomous IT operations. But again, it's really, what we've been doing within the OpsRamp platform is really around AIOps. Okay, but what we're doing is we're combining observability, AIOps, and automation into a single platform to give customers, a single solution for all their needs. So we're starting to see, a big increase in the adoption of AIOps around about until 2020. Okay, again, that kind of coincides with the evolution or emergence of observability as a mainstream practice. So again, just very briefly on some of the key advances, I won't go through all of these, but we really started to see the emergence of DevOps and what's called CI/CD pipelines. So again, if you've been involved in the development community, you know this very well. I think this is really key to observability, because if we're able to surface, changes, because there's just so many changes happening now, given the complexity of current IT systems, we've got to be able to understand changes and being able to link that to any downstream performance and availability and reliability issues. So we can identify the root causes immediately. And so that's where, whenever you're going to hear me talk, and if you see me demonstrate, you're going to see me start talk about CI/CD integration, as I think that's really key. So moving on briefly to where are we today in the last few years? So we're starting to see a massive surge in the observability and AIOps markets. Just to give you some figures here, from up until 2022, the market was worth 2.9 billion, and by 2028, it's expected to reach $9 billion. So there's a huge interest still in this type of solution, given the benefits that it offers, customers and enterprises today. Again, AIOps is seen as like a separate market, but I think that this is really converging. So rather than having lots of different tools, a lot of the our value proposition at OpsRamp is, why do you need so many different tools? You have a best of breed solution that combines observability, AIOps, and automation. But there is a separate market for that. So from the research, 70% of organizations have already implemented or have a plan to implement observability, with 92% prioritizing it as a key initiative. So this is over the last 5 years. Of course, if you any organization that you talk to or you work with, just have a look at the investments that you've been making over the last 20 years. I'd be very surprised if you don't have some kind of observability and AIOps solution already and other monitoring tools. But, what's your strategy going forward, given some of the trends, which I'll talk about in a second? Obviously, one of the challenges with observability is just the amount of data. So if you have, an application that's generating, terabytes of transaction data daily, do you really need to be analyzing all of that to really understand, what's going on inside your system? Maybe not. So there are some challenges around the data and how to manage that data. And there's still challenges around silos. So this is normally, in my experience, related to investing in different tooling. So for metrics, there's lots of different tools for that, compute, storage, different solutions, 10 different logging tools, tracing tools. That's really one of the challenges that we still see. So that is probably part of the strategy is, okay, how we're going to tackle that. Again, lots of advances and innovations that are relevant to where we are now. It's going to be interesting to see what's going on with quantum computing and large language models, how we can apply observability and AIOps techniques for these new technologies. That's what makes it really interesting. Obviously, a huge boom in AI. Again, we're just bombarded with AI. Okay. But how are you going to apply that, to managing IT operations or complex infrastructure or complex application environments? Or if you're a service provider, how are you going to apply that technology to managing thousands of customers? And that's really, the direction the market trend is to address some of these issues. So it's a huge, potential in the market. Now, this is really gets interesting. So in terms of the trends, this is, done by independent research. These are not my words, just the research that I've done. This is not OpsRamp talking here. This is what the market sees as the future trends. But if you read it, AI-driven observability. We want to use AI and machine learning to analyze vast amounts of telemetry data in real time, identifying patterns, anomalies, and root causes. That is available today. Okay. We're able to offer you that today. Predictive analytics, using AI to predict failures. We are able to offer that today. Okay. Self-healing systems, integrating with automation frameworks. Again, this is available to you today. So a lot of the tools that I'm personally familiar with that customers use are tools like Ansible, Terraform, and other, infrastructure as code tools. Can be used effectively to handle automations with endpoints because you already have them. We want to reuse those investments that you've made. Why do you need a point, automation tool to handle that? Well, you've already got them. And the idea here is we just want to integrate with them. But the self-healing part, again, this is not a new idea. We've been wanting to do this for decades. It used to be, the term was called autonomic computing back in the day. So thinking machines. So this is where I'll come back to the dream is, okay, we're going to get to a point where we'll have a single platform. We're ingesting all of the required data for observability, metrics, logs, traces, network flows, and so on. We're going to get to a stage where we're going to be able to make decisions. And rather than me worrying about, how much it's performing, it will be able to tell me physically, speak to me that there's an issue, and it will come up with obviously the recommendations, and I can speak back and says, that will be, part of the self-healing. You just allow it to make these decisions, or you have the controls in place. So we have that today with the ops ramp, the ability to have, some controls in place where to say, okay, before an action is taken, you need to get approval. So we have the fundamentals of all of this today. Unified observability platforms. Again, this is an aspiration. Having the single pane of glass, it's been, a consideration for many, many years. Is this even achievable? Of course, yes, it is. OpsRamp is a unified observability platform. So you have all of this today. You don't need 10 different tools to achieve this. Cross environment monitoring, having a single platform that manages, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud on-premise. It says the future trend is it will become standard. That again is available to you today. Right. So increasing focus on developer observability. So the term shift left has been used for several years now, but again, it's about, trying to get in front of issues as early on in the development cycle as possible. So let's not wait for, production issues to surface. Let's try and get them in pre-production environments. Okay. And that's really, obviously you can do that today. Okay. But, it's using tools like, or frameworks like OpenTelemetry. So this is a cloud native project that OpsRamp and other vendors are fully on board with. And if you ever see me demonstrate OpsRamp solution, you'll see me talk about, this project here. So again, the modern day, the emerging solution is eBPF. So if you haven't researched it, go look it up. It's going to be, one of the next talk I do on here. But again, that's going to be really critical going forward, to integrate that data into, to give us even more insights into how our systems are performing. So data volumes are going to just, get even more massive. Okay. So today, the last 5 years, the data tells me there's 2.5 quintillion bytes of data daily. That's even just going to be minuscule in comparison to what the future lies. Now, the last one I'll just talk about here, observability for business metrics. So this used to be known as business service management, BSM, for those of you that have been around a long time. But for those of you not familiar with, this has been an aspiration for a long, long time, being able to align the business with IT. Okay. But in order to do that, we need to be understanding business data, business metrics, business KPIs, customer satisfaction, revenue, non-IT, KPIs, but combining that with what's going on with their IT systems. Now, observability has all that insight. Okay, we've understood the internal workings of the system by the output. We can now tie that in with, business metrics. Again, it's available today, but maybe just customers are just not aware of this, or it's not, on their roadmaps yet. But again, these are all, aspirational, projects to focus on. But, be rest assured that, there is a solution available today. So just in a few minutes, I'm not going to spend too much time, obviously, going through the Opsram platform, but just to give you an idea of, the solutions today. So unified observability, yes, we have all of the data, right? The metrics, logs, traces, network flows. We have all of the integrations into all of the on-premise, hybrid cloud and cloud native environments, thousands of integrations. We give you the ability to understand what is going on in your environments. So to give you an example of that, here's a VMware environment. Okay, I'll just zoom in and show you this view. Here you can see the inner workings of that entire system. Okay, this is just discovered automatically. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. So this allows you to, understand, okay, the impact of changes, where issues are. But machine learning uses this to identify the relationships between configuration items. Again, very, very critical to achieving the outcomes that customers are looking for. So I'm not going to go through all the capabilities, but one thing again that we are offering is the ability to use Gen AI to ask questions about the system. So this is really the future direction. So the dream is going to become a reality. So next part we offer is that AIOps. Obviously, we call it AI-powered analytics, but it's really where you're applying AI machine learning to various operational processes. Again, where we've really focused on initially is on the event management, the incident management process, giving you the ability to predict when issues are going to happen based on its seasonality patterns, streaming out alerts to third-party systems. So this allows you to reduce the noise in the environment. So to give you an example, live. So this is what I was showing earlier on. So here you can see, over the last 30 days, there's been over 24,000 alerts. We've been able to reduce that down by 99% to give a small set of actionable alerts that then, if we can apply automation, this is what we refer to as autonomous IT operations. Okay, so we're just letting the system run by itself. Okay, so that's when we apply intelligent automation. So we provide the framework to develop workflows. Okay, and we can embed all the scripts, integrate with infrastructure as code tools, do all your network configurations and backups, embedding a knowledge base, providing patch management, all the type of automation that you need. But the value here in these type of solutions is we're combining it all into a single platform. So you no longer need 10 different tools to do this. Okay, that's all I really had today. I just wanted to thank you for giving me the opportunity to give you a sense of, how we've evolved, from initial days of mainframes back in the 60s, where, log files was really the only thing available, or very, very, rudimentary log files, all the way through to AI insights, and the future direction of this really, really interesting space. I just want to thank you again, and I'll just pause there, and I'm hoping if there's any questions, I'll be happy to
Thank
answer.
you, Neil. There's a number of discussions in the chat about interesting books about history of computers. So that was interesting. But somebody is asking, Ken is asking about what LLM is Opsram using for chat and alert automation.
So I'll need to, I believe we're using Lambda. But I will check if there's a way that we can get back to this forum with any answers to questions. I will find out. But what I showed you in that screenshot is not yet released. It was announced at Discover last year. It's called the Copilot. Again, I'm happy to go, get some technical details around what we're using, but again, it's still in development. And there's lots more that's coming out from us around Gen AI. We're really on that journey towards being able to, ask questions. So this is that AI agent that's going to be, but it's based on the data that's in the platform. But I will find out the exact LLM we're using, and
Okay. And
get
there's another question in the Q&A, and here we have the traces.
yeah.
Lino is asking how complex is it to deploy ops ramps. So I will provide you with the email of Lino so you can provide an answer there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Ken is trying to find out if it's Meta Llama 3. Is that what you were
Yeah,
looking for? Yeah, okay.
yeah, I believe it is, but I will confirm that. Okay.
And I think that's about it. We provided there weren't in let's see, there's another one. Oh, that's a complex one. I don't know if you're seeing the Q&A from the question from Justin about autonomous cars.
Yes.
That's a tricky one.
Wow. Okay. I'll have
While
to.
you're thinking about that,
Yeah.
I brought up the end of session poll, everyone. So if you can just spend like 2 seconds answering those three easy questions so we get feedback from you about the session. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So the last one I saw you using demo level. Is it available for HPE internal? Yes, it is. It's on the HPE demo portal. So if you log into that and then just search for OpsRamp, you will see the demo solution that I'm using right here. Yeah, I'll have to think about the self-driving car.
Yeah, Mathieu in the chat is reminding us that we have opened a new channel in the Slack workspace, the HP Dev Slack workspace it's called HP Ops Ramp. So you can ask question there or answer question there. Feel free, and the link is in the chat, so people can maybe continue the conversation there. That would be good.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for the questions. We will get back to you with sensible answers. The one about the self-driving car, that's an interesting analogy. And but thanks, Justin, for that one.
Anyway, thanks for everyone for joining. I think that was a very interesting session. Thank you, Neil, for spending the time with us. We're eager to get you back in March about these eBPFs
Yeah,
session.
me too.
And again, thank you everyone for joining. We'll see you in other sessions throughout the months or next month for the next Munch and Learn. Thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it.